Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Border Force officers and firefighters could be replaced by military personnel due to scheduled strike action over Christmas. It's part of contingency plans announced by the government. Around 2,000 members of the armed forces are now being trained alongside civil servants and volunteers. It's hoped the measures will help to limit disruption, with multiple unions deciding to strike in the coming weeks. The Home Secretary says she told the head of the police watchdog to resign or face immediate suspension after he became the subject of a criminal investigation. Michael Lockwood had been Director General of the Independent Office for Police Conduct since 2018. He resigned yesterday, citing personal and domestic reasons. In a statement, Suella Braverman said she took immediate action upon being made aware that police are investigating a historic allegation. Protests have been held in more than 40 locations across the UK over the fuel poverty crisis. Activists unfurled a banner on Westminster Bridge saying, "We demand to be warm this winter." Protesters say many people now can't afford to heat their homes, whereas energy companies continue to make huge profits. Animal rebellion activists have staged sit-ins at 2 restaurants in London and Manchester. 8 people entered Salt Bay's steak restaurant in Knightsbridge and sat at tables which were already reserved. Video posted on the group's Twitter page appears to show one protester being ejected. A further 16 supporters occupied Manor in Manchester, which features in the Michelin Guide. Animal Rebellion is calling for a plant-based future. England will face the winners of the Africa Cup of Nations tomorrow in their first match in the knockout stage of the World Cup in Qatar. Senegal won their title only 7 weeks ago and were runner-up in their group. However, the Three Lions are favourites to go through to the next round. Well, ahead of that game, England captain Harry Kane has sent the best wishes of himself and his squad to former footballer Pelé. The 82-year-old is currently battling colon cancer. He was recently admitted to palliative care, where he's said to be stable. Kane says he cherishes advice he received from the football legend, who he describes as an inspiration. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're watching the People's Channel, GB News. Time now for Josh and those headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm your host, Joshua Howie, Esquire, and I'm joined by comedy chums Sajila Kershi and Steve N. Allen, not to be confused with Steve M. Allen, who's a proper nasty piece of work. We have got a ton of Sunday's news to dissect for you, but first, let's have a peek at those papers. The Sunday Telegraph, pharmacies drafted in to break NHS strike. The Sunday Mirror, utterly explosive. Harry and Meghan TV warning. Netflix show is worse than royals can imagine. The Sunday Times going with panicking Tories plan tough new laws on asylum. The Sunday Express, William, I'll fight back. Prince's warning shot to Harry and Meghan on eve of Netflix show. The Sun on Sunday, Harry, Brits need lessons. Duke's astonishing comment over Oprah. The Daily Star Sunday reads, come on England, let's give Lineker's lugs a rub for good luck. And those are your front pages. Right, let's begin with the front page of The Observer, Steve. What are they going with?
A couple of depressing stories, if that's what you're into.
Let's do it. Let's start the show, as we mean to go on.
Ministers accused of spoiling for a fight with nurses, which never go for a fight with a nurse, because they know too much about the anatomy. They'd take you down in seconds. I once dated someone who was, she was an undergraduate medical student. Same thing. They know too much. But this is more about pay. This is Health Secretary Steve Barclay, who said he will not negotiate. So bearing in mind that any one of us could be impacted by the strike, because you never know. You know, you might fall over at the wrong time and need a nurse when they're on strike. And even if you think the amount of pay rise they're asking for is too much, because they're trying to factor in the pay losses that they've had over the last 10 years, if you're not willing to negotiate, you are part of guaranteeing that the strike will happen, which might be the reason why our relative doesn't make it through a trip to A&E. So I don't have a lot of time for Steve Barclay's attitude of I will not negotiate. Go and negotiate your side. You're not going to win the argument if you don't take part.
Do you agree, Sajila?
Yes, please negotiate, because I shall be relying on those nurses this Monday when I have my surgery. Minor surgery, I'm OK. But, you know, the nurses do an amazing job. Just negotiate. And it's really easy to blame the people who are striking, like, oh, they're holding the country to ransom. No, that's the last resort. So, you know, can you please, like, do something so that they don't have to do that?
Well, the argument goes that, of course, what they're actually asking for in terms of wanting pay at the rate of inflation now is that inflation is going to go down, but also the idea that by giving everybody who wants pay at inflation, that's going to make inflation worse and it's going to create this spiral. So there is a need for balance here, surely. We can't just go, here's everything you want.
But even if you think that, then you should go to the meeting and negotiate that point. The refusal to even turn up to a room and say it is going to guarantee that the strike takes place.
And
I agree.
I mean, how do you think that, like, what Scotland has come to an agreement and they are talking now with it, and it seems like Scottish nurses are going to be earning on average over £800 more at the moment. Do you think that puts a lot of problem for the government over in?
I don't know why we're using nurses, you know, the ones that actually deserve it, as some kind of benchmark as to, oh, well, if they go and ask for what they deserve, that somehow they're responsible for the, you know, the economy going down or any other reason. I don't think that's a logical argument, because that's basically blaming them for something that they deserve. You know, it's like they didn't screw up the economy. The government did. So let's put the blame where the blame is meant to be.
But anybody who works for public institutions can then go, well, look, nurses just, they've got their 11% that they wanted. We also want 11%, and that's the idea.
Well, I'm in hospital on Monday. I want the nurses to have everything they want. You be comfortable, ladies and gentlemen. And,
I see. If it was on Tuesday, you'd be coming here with like a different picture. You'd be like, don't give those nurses anything.
That's a very good point, because I've got me minor surgery for the lump at some stage.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm also not going to be upsetting nurses.
No.
Good point.
We love you. We love you,
Fine.
NHS. I genuinely do.
Now, let's talk about this other story that's on the front page. And this one makes me quite upset.
And as it should, because the story is Afghans face torture after UK breaks its pledge to help. People who were translators or in some way helping, and there was a promise made by the UK when the pullout happened, and obviously parts of it were botched, if not all of it were botched, the speed at which it happened, the lack of planning or whatever. But a promise was made that if you were working with the West, effectively, UK or America, that you clearly face some reprisals if we just head away from there and see what happens. So we promised to give safety to these people. So far, let's just run through the stats. I'll give you the figures. Not one person has been accepted and evacuated from Afghanistan under the Home Office's scheme. That's 0 people. So, I mean, what message does this send? So even the next time we're somewhere where we say, oh, we need locals to try and help, why would they? Look at how we failed on our promise. Why would they believe us next time?
I mean, what do you think?
I'm livid. I'm absolutely livid, because I still remember it's ingrained, those images of, when the forces pulled out and people are hanging on the planes, they're desperate, and it's like, oh, no, we're going to sort this. And I knew it's never going to get sorted. It's like to go back. It's so un-British to not honour your commitment to what you were going to do.
Well, they say there's 5 or 6 people possibly working in this department to sort this out. I mean, this is crazy. And then the terrible thing is, even further, when you actually start reading the examples of some of these people who worked as translators or worked for security, for the British Council, and you're just like, someone's daughter died because this person was in hiding and his wife couldn't take the daughter to the hospital. There was other people whose brothers been attacked and taken to and tortured in prison. I mean, it's unbelievable that the government and look, how bad are we getting migration at the moment?
We're getting it so bad. I tell you, we just have no. We're not good at this. This is something that we're not being very good at, and I don't think history is going to be very kind on looking back on this. And one of the sentences here in this article says there is absolutely no sense that Afghanistan is any kind of priority at all. That's so evident. I feel ashamed right now. I feel ashamed.
I mean, people would argue that when it came to Ukrainian refugees, that Britain really stepped up.
Yeah, we put out the red carpet. And what happens is, I do believe that the tone of the country comes from the top, and because government was saying, look, we've got to welcome Ukrainians, they're in this town, which they weren't, this horrible war-torn thing, and everybody followed suit. People opened up their homes. If we'd done the same with Afghans, if we'd done the same with refugees that really genuinely need help, we wouldn't have this horrific rhetoric that we have against outsiders, people from other countries who are actually in situations that they're in because of policies that we made in the past.
But the strange thing about this story is even the people who ordinarily would not be that welcoming were saying at the time, oh, yeah, of course we should help. This is a group of people where even those who don't like refugees like the idea of offering the help that we promised. So it's a double failing. Even the people who don't like these kind of schemes would have expected it to be followed through on. So it's an embarrassment.
Britain, we're about fairness, and this has just not been fair.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Sunday Times. Sajila, there's a lot of news on this cover. What are you going to go with first?
So we've got on the Sunday Times, panicking Tories plan tough new laws on asylum.
Hey, more migration.
Yeah, more migration, because it's it never goes out of fashion. Anyone who arrives illegally to lose the right to stay. MPs are discussing pulling out the European rights laws, which I think is wrong. And then there's another article, police watchdog forced to quit. So the head of this country's police watchdog, whose job is to root out rogue officers, has now resigned because he's under criminal investigation. You cannot write this stuff, and yet it's been written here in the Times, Sunday Times, yeah. So that's all falling. And then the third story we've got down here is Hancock Diaries are an insult, is the headline. And obviously it's a little bit more alluding to the fact that Hancock has, just by coincidence, been writing these diaries during the pandemic, which I'm not sure I'm convinced.
Yeah, well, let's take the first of those stories. Panicking Tories plan tough new laws on asylum. anybody who follows this stuff online will see this constant debate of are people illegal by coming over? Is the act itself make them illegal? But of course, the moment you actually get to the UK, you claim asylum, and then you're no longer an illegal migrant. You are now an asylum seeker. This seems to address that, and then by basically saying that anybody who comes to this country illegally in this way, like i.e. without a visa. But the one thing that hasn't been addressed, and I don't know if anybody saw this interview when she was being sort of queried by the panel, Braverman, but there are no actual legal routes. So this seems to be the big contradiction.
Yeah. Well, that is the Home Affairs Select Committee. It was Tim Loughton, an excellent question where he said, what legal way could I get to the UK then? And it's a shame we don't have the clip because it is so awkward. Where she says, can any of my team want to answer
Anybody
that one?
step in.
That's phoning a friend.
Phone a friend.
Yeah, what an embarrassing... So if ever there should be someone who could name a legal route, it's the person in charge of it. She couldn't, so there are clearly no legal routes.
Look, I don't want to be like this, hey, look at us lefties here and we're all admonishing the government. But they have failed in terms of how they've dealt with migration. And I'm not calling myself personally in any way for just open borders or any of that stuff. I think absolutely we need to control our borders. But is this the right way to do it?
Oh, do you know what? There's a word for it, and well, two words: fest, and then it's the poop fest, right? That's what's happening here. It's absolutely appalling. It's diabolical. I mean, they're saying that in this article that they're going to anybody who comes here immediately is banned from coming back ever again. That's all very well, but you need to find out why they've come here. So you're not even processing them. The very basic thing. There's a whole
Well, that makes it easier because they've only dealt with, I think, 4% of their actual...
You don't know where they've come from. You don't know what their situation is. That's a human right.
No, but that's what I'm saying is they're getting criticism, the government's getting criticism because they've only dealt with like 4% of the applications. Well, the best thing you could do is just go, you know what, we don't have applications anymore. You came here illegally, that's it. It's over for you.
But then you are breaching human rights abuses because if you don't actually listen to what's happening, if you're just like, OK, let's turn them away, you know what, there's relationships with France, with Europe, there's a whole list of things. They just keep putting sticky plasters all over here, and it's much deeper rooted.
Well, this is not going away at all. I look forward to dealing with this story many, many times in its different forms.
Yeah, let's pace ourselves on this, shall we?
All right, well, let's get on to something really important now. The front page of The Sun on Sunday, Sajila. Oh, is it Steve? Steve who's going to do this?
Yeah. Oh, great, because it's me talking about Harry and Meghan. My take on this, and I'll give you the headline first. Brits need lesson. Duke's astonishing comment over Oprah. It says Prince Harry boasted about his bombshell attacks on the royal family. I will end up having to watch this, but only because people care. And I'll be asked about these Netflix special or whatever on this show. And the only reason we get asked is because of the haters. You know, if we all just ignored what they were doing and realised they're not really royal, they're celebs, you can ignore celebs. No, give it a try. I tell you, I go through life not really caring too much about what this couple do, and it's freeing. Try it, but the newspapers...
No, it's too good. Yeah, loving it. I'm fully invested. I'll be there on Thursday. Netflix remote at the ready.
Netflix, and on the 20th, get the book. Have you put it on your Christmas...
I haven't got a
pop-up book.
I'm getting
one of those.
Don't ask me to read a book. Come on, Sajila.
It's a colouring version.
We can listen to it, can't we, in audio?
No, I've got too much fantasy fiction to be getting through. Although this could fall under that remit. Who knows how much of it is actually true or not. I mean, they really do look for any way to attack them. But then this idea, we need a lesson. Brits need lesson. What lesson do you think that...
Who
British
said
people...
that, though?
Well, that's what they're saying. Look, whether it's true or not, but this is what supposedly Prince Harry boasted to a friend or something when the whole Oprah interview. Brits need... What lesson do you think he's talking about?
OK, so look at this another way. If your mother's been killed in a really horrific situation, your parent, you're basically, you're dysfunctional family... Other people write books.
Who killed her?
Why can't...
She didn't get killed.
Yeah,
She had a terrible accident.
She had a terrible... Well, doesn't that killed? That's still being killed.
No, she wasn't killed.
It's not murder. Killed is not murder.
Do you know something we don't?
Huh?
Yeah.
What are you... How far ahead of us on watching The Crown?
Yeah, on The Crown. I've watched all of it. So, guys, spoiler alert, so I don't want to give it away. No. But, yeah, I mean, I just think he's just writing his story, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think then they can move forward. He airs it all, and then hopefully they can move forward with this.
Yeah, they ain't moving forward. That is it for the first section. In part 2, prayers may be on the way out in British schools. Same with hijabs in Iran. But luckily, America has a new bomber for us to idolise. See you in 2.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie. At least that's the name they gave me for witness protection. And I've got Sajila Kershi and Steve N. Allen still in the house. Right, let's kick off with Sunday's Observer. And Steve, I've got to be impartial about this, so you can tell everyone how great Brexit's been.
Yeah, that is, I'm guessing 3 people who were in the Remain camp reading from the Observer. I wonder what's going to happen. Let's see who we're upset with this. Brexit has fuelled surge in UK food prices, says Bank of England policymaker. Now, this follows on from last week or earlier this week. The London School of Economics saying 200 quid extra a year was added to our food bills because of Brexit. And people's immediate response is, you got a couple, there's to say, what about the war? But it's an and, not a but. It's not, but it's all the war. No, they factored into it. Yes, Putin's war makes things more expensive. Yes, inflation was coming down the pipeline anyway, but it seems that Brexit, and it makes some sense, if you just let go of the emotion of Brexit for a second. Remember,
never!
Back in the day...
I will never let go of the emotion.
Back in the day when you could... If anyone was in a pub talking about trade deals, you think you're a weirdo, get out of it. And yet now we all need to have an opinion on it. Trade helps. And we don't really have great trade deals since we were promised them, and we got one with Australia that people seem to think is not in our favour. So, of course, it would make things a bit more expensive. I don't know why people can't admit that, because not every single vote for Brexit was about thinking it'll make our food cheaper. So why are we appalled to hear it's made our food more expensive? There is a weird mindset that happens where you may well have voted for Brexit because you wanted sovereignty, control, any of those issues. But now when someone says, it's made things more expensive, you feel the need to defend against it. I don't get it.
I'm with you. I don't understand the defensiveness. I see it on, the fallout on Twitter afterwards, and I really genuinely don't get. It's, you don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing to do with. Well, why would you not consider? And this is where I think we've gone wrong. It's that we're not even willing to consider that might be a possibility. That you're so ingrained that we were right to vote that. I'm saying fine, we're going to go with that. But it's not necessarily working out the way that we wanted it to work out. And I kind of agree with you, Steve, on that. And it's almost like they gaslight themselves and gaslight everybody around them. Like, no, it's got nothing to do with...
Well, it's not just Brexit. I mean, it goes into...
everything.
Whatever your position is on any...
We've become so divisive.
And so entrenched. And that is part of the problem, is this sort of unwillingness. But how do we move beyond this? Because the political parties are not talking about it. Particularly Labour, who it's looking most likely are going to be running the country in a couple of years, it's still too toxic for even them to talk about this kind of stuff, right? But does someone need to actually be brave and step up and be the adult in the room and say, all right, this is the reality now? Because you have to deal with the problem before you can actually start fixing it, right?
Or you have to admit that there is a problem, but no one can say it out loud. Is that what you're saying?
That's basically what's happening now.
But they are dealing with it by knocking it further down the road, but that's what happens in politics. By Starmer saying we will not be pursuing rejoining the EU, you need to knock it further down the road. The only way that could ever happen, and I'm not saying I even think it should, but that will be a generation where another referendum happens. We need to admit that there is no political way of changing our minds, whether you think it's a good idea or not. I know there are some surveys, you quote the surveys, but then people just say surveys don't mean anything. But it's like over 50% of people say Brexit has not gone the way they wanted.
Yeah.
That should be OK to admit.
And it's OK to be changing your mind, surely.
What, are you changing your mind? Sajila,
yeah.
what are you talking about?
I won't be watching again.
Fine, sticking with The Observer. And Sajila, no more forgive our daily trespasses then?
Forgive us our daily trespasses.
For
those
lead us not into temptation.
For he who deliver us from evil. The divine and the glory, the power and the glory. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean,
I did love that bit in Assembly.
That was great guesswork.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I told you about my hymns. I love my hymns.
I mean, we are not the team.
And you got a Jew. And you got, what are you?
I'm an agnostic.
Am I allowed to say that anymore?
No,
Sorry.
I'm an agnostic. I could not. One of those.
Agnostic.
Right, but I did like the hymns. Hymn number 71. I told you this before. Right. OK. So what's happening is schools are calling for an end to anarchic daily worship following UK census results. As you remember, they're saying that 46% only identify as being Christian now. That isn't to say that loads of other faiths are taking over, but, lots of people are not like...
There's one group that's gone up.
Atheists. Atheism is going up. Agnostic people, like on the fence, like me, we're growing up. So people are kind of, like, schools are fudging it. One of them saying that what they're doing is they're fudging it by saying, well, I know we're supposed to do it because that's what the government told us, but because we've got, like, a mixed school, we kind of really, we kind of go with what's the diversity in the room. We sort of like have assemblies based on that. I don't actually remember any of the religious content of my assemblies. I don't know if you do, but I do remember the hymns and I do remember the one prayer. That was
this is what I was going to say. Steve, do you think that there is actually a benefit to religious ceremonies, even though you don't believe in God?
Not the ceremony.
Heathen?
Yeah, not the ceremony. Have I been struck down? No, seems fine. Not for the ceremonies, but yes, the education. So I know there's a requirement to have some sort of a faith-related, skewed toward Christianity event at school. I don't think we need to have them in schools. I mean, I'd take faith out of faith schools, to be fair. But the education's good. I think it is good to know about the details of the Bible and other faiths. I love some of the stories we were told, but it's not made me grow up to be someone who believed in it.
See, I have to say, I sort of disagree. I mean, I'm Jewish, but I didn't mind necessarily reading the...
When did
it's come out there recently. I've just found out a couple of weeks ago.
Oh
Someone asked me and I looked into it when I was at the palace.
Where are you from?
Yeah, I was just... I was all, like, dressed up. I had, like, the payas. I had the whole thing.
And what?
I changed my name. Anyway, but saying that, having a moment of reflection is not a bad thing.
No, it's not. And I didn't mind assemblies, so I'm actually not saying that we should get rid of them. I think that religious education, RE, is that still a thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I love that, and I thought that was a really, and I think it still benefits my son, my nieces, who are next generation, because they learn about all different faiths. But I think maybe somewhere where you come together. I'm all right with them.
Come together.
Come together.
Evening chat show about the news.
Yeah.
Next, we have Sunday's Independent. And Steve, it's great to see them highlighting the dangers of increasing anti-Semitism 5 years later.
Are you Jewish?
Oh, my God, it links together! How did this story get in here? This is obviously some kind of conspiracy.
It's definitely.
Who's controlling the media and saying, should put this story on anti-Semitism.
Well, it's worked for you then, by the looks of it, because
it's a really good... paying off!
The Independent's making a really good point about how there's a slew of celebs who are saying things that are not even questionably anti-Semitic. What was the Kanye thing, the Ye thing? That he tweeted or Instagram saying, I'm tired, but when I wake up, I'm going to go DEFCON 5 on the
There's
Jews.
only DEFCON 3.
I
DEFCON
keep
5
getting
is
that wrong.
full-on anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
DEFCON 3 on the Jews is like,
Yeah.
that's normal business. DEFCON 5 is the when
I
you're going
don't
to get
even
scared.
understand what that means.
It means he's going to kick someone, like state of war, basically.
Oh, okay,
That's
well.
what they use.
all right,
DEFCON 1,
yeah.
DEFCON
I mean,
4.
I kind of guessed it was not nice.
It's not good. It didn't make the Jewish people feel very happy.
No.
Yeah, and there's been some other tweets and other celebs, and the point is about normalising it, and it's really interesting. I watched that David Baddiel Channel 4 documentary, The Jews Don't Count. So throughout the entire documentary, he asked a question which I think is appropriate here. What would this news story be like if these celebs had said something that was full-on racist about a race that Whoopi Goldberg would acknowledge to be racism, and the story would be very different because. For some reason, comments that are anti-Semitic don't even bring about that. You know that thing where you see people look over their shoulder before they say something? You know, they're going to say something racist, look around. They don't even do that if they're coming out with anti-Semitism. That would be a step in the right direction, wouldn't it? At least people being sheepish about it.
Well, I guess this is what the article is arguing, Sajila, is that this is leading to the mainstream of it, of this whole...
Yeah,
phenomenon
no, and I think when
where-
you've got people in the public eye who, like, have huge followings and they are saying things like that makes it because what they're doing is then they're telling, obviously young, impressionable people as well, not talking about the people who can actually read and understand that this is wrong, then that there's consequences to that. And I think, they should be accountable, quite frankly, because I don't think being in the public eye, it comes with responsibility. And I don't think that they should be gearing towards any kind of hatred towards any group.
Well, that's lovely to hear you say that. I mean, obviously in America, in 2018, you had 11 people murdered in Pittsburgh synagogue. I think the point is that this kind of rhetoric bleeds into real life. And it isn't just from the right, I have to say. This also comes from the left and the far left and working towards normalising it. That's my little speech over. Let's move on. But I'm sure we'll be back with this topic tomorrow or someday. Sunday's Telegraph. And Sajila, is there going to be a lot more Head & Shoulders sold in Iran?
Okay, so...
Pretty proud of that,
okay,
Lee.
I see
You
what
want to laugh at that?
I see what you did
No,
there.
I mean, whatever, mate. Whatever. If you just want to ignore that...
That's all right. So Iran reviews a decades-old hijab law in bid to quell ongoing protests. Now, there's been a little bit of backtrack. As you know, that there's been, a lot of protests. Very, very brave women and men, actually, fighting against the regime and speaking out, especially since the protest since the death of Mansa Amini when she was in police custody. So this has been impressive. I mean, I've just been watching this, fascinated, and it's amazing these people are so brave. So the president there had said that Iran's Republican and Islamic foundations were constitutionally entrenched, but that there were some methods of implementing the constitution that can be flexible.
Oh, is this your Jewish impression here?
Flexible. I've been watching the Shahs of Sunset. Oh my God! So they're Jewish Iranians.
Yes.
And I love it. I'm so
Got a few
hooked.
friends
I love
there.
them. I love them so much.
Crazy.
But anyway, so he's trying to kind of backtrack a little bit to try and stop this. But I still think that the Iranians should be pushing. We should be putting that pressure on the regime because they've had the hijab since 1983. 1979, obviously, the regime came into the Islamic, regime came in, and women have zero rights. They cannot. It's not just doesn't just stop at the hijab. It's basically they can't go to the shops. They can't go drive without a male companion or someone accompanying them. They can't do sports. They need someone.
That's
man's
not, that's not true. You think it's about Saudi Arabia?
Huh?
No, I mean in Iran, they can do
Iran,
sports.
women don't have independence.
No, but they can do sports and they can drive.
But you have to have permission from a male, and also people disappear. People just vanish. So there's the sportswoman who had the climbing woman.
Yeah.
She her hijab said it came off on public TV, but even though she removed it, I think it was a protest. She's disappeared, and then her family got attacked for that.
No, I'm not arguing they're a horrible regime. Steve, is this indication that the government is scared?
Yes, that was going to be my point. This is the crack that starts to show. This is actually not a sign. I can see it's an offering to try and stop the protest. Opposite way around. This is the sign to do stronger protest. This is the time to push even harder because you've got a regime that is not particularly well known for wanting to back down on things, starting to try and find the wiggle room. I mean, the idea that you'd have a law that tells you what you have to wear anyway. But you know, I'd take faith out of faith school, so I imagine what I think about.
Yeah, but the next question is, if they did change the law, would that be enough to actually appease the people protesting? Is it really about the hijab, or is it about, you know, it's a very young country in terms of the demographics. I'm sure that people want more than just to be able to show their hair.
Yes.
I didn't mean they should push harder to make sure that
No, I know, but
goes
do you
through.
think that would in any way appease the protesters?
No, I hope it doesn't. I hope it shows that it is a sign of weakness.
Yeah, I hope too. OK, part two's finished. Join us after the break for Blacklist is now on the blacklist, the National Police LGBT Network's block list, and a robot that can cut out your cyst. See you in two.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Welcome back to Headliners. Opening this section with the Sunday Telegraph and the fourth member of our show, Elon Musk. Sajila, what has our overlord done today?
OK, so Elon Musk, he's basically cheering on Twitter about the emails from Hunter Biden. So he basically sent out a tweet. He was like sending out little teasers. If you remember the Hunter Biden computer, I'm just
remember.
Because I didn't realise it was an Linux, so I'm just having a little
Photos of me on that computer. I'm really hoping aren't coming out.
Sorry?
It was a joke.
OK, I missed it.
You mean you actually weren't photographed on that computer?
No, it was really me. We go way back. Party days, university, crazy times.
So yeah, he basically began teasing the publication of information he called the Twitter files. See what he did there. Well done, Musk. And to release these things, because obviously before they stopped it, the previous owners didn't release it. They were staring at me in a very strange way.
I'm just waiting for you.
Just
telling the story.
Telling you the story. That, you know, so Jill hasn't got just rested. Yeah. So basically, he knew that there was a storm coming, so he kind of milked that. He's very good at the publicity thing, and sent out a post saying, "We're double checking the facts. So probably start live tweeting in about 40 minutes." And I missed all this. I don't know if you guys.
Well, Steve, did you see what the facts were?
No.
I didn't watch any of his live tweeting.
No, I haven't.
In fact, I've not looked at Twitter for a good long while now, and life gets better when you don't.
You're mad. You're mad.
I agree. It's really calming, isn't it?
But this story speaks of the fact that they used some technicality or a good thing, that they claimed that it was hacked material, and that's why they didn't let people post the details of it. And then they undid that as a decision. But I'm not surprised that there is bias within an organisation in the same way that the other social media ones, the Getter and the Parler or whatever, I imagine have a bias in the opposite direction. It's more important, I suppose, because Twitter's bigger. But I'm not shocked by it.
Well, I mean, I guess the question to you then is, this information that has come out, do you think it makes any difference?
No. Well, I think it might change the way discussions happen. Normally on the internet, you say anything about Biden, someone will say, Hunter Biden's laptop. If that could stop being the refrain all the time, then actually maybe we could have conversations that go a bit further.
Like he's super duper old. And
that'll get mentioned as well.
Yeah,
right.
and you know, being controlled.
But the suggestion that if they'd released it before, that he might not have won. I don't know.
Well, that is the question. I mean, what's interesting about, or not interesting about these files is there's a lot of emails going back and forth, people talking about it, but there doesn't seem to be a smoking gun here, which I think people were hoping. They wanted to see a big conspiracy when actually it's just a bunch of emails going back. And I think that's the thing that people 9 times out of 10 in these conspiracy ideas just forget. It's just a bunch of people getting on with their jobs and being a bit rubbish at them. And that seems to be really what has happened here. There isn't any evidence yet on... I mean, and now that the Republicans own the House, the idea is that they're going to now open these investigations into this laptop and see if these business relationships actually do compromise the country in any way.
It won't matter what the results are, because the fact that an investigation is happening will be the next club that is used to beat people halfway through a conversation. Because you're right, the details of what was leaked are less important than the fact that you could refer to the cover-up. It seems to imply more malevolence. So actually, it's better the info's out there, but you're right, it moves on to investigation stage, same thing will happen.
I think we learned a very valuable lesson, though. Don't leave your valuable computer at the workshop, at the repair shop, if you happen to be the son of a future...
I don't know if that's the
We've
lesson.
learnt the lesson of use Linux and make sure you use the encrypted file storage and then only use the Tor browser.
I think the lesson is don't do drugs in your underpants and have loads of photos taken of you.
Each to their own.
And I've learned that one the harsh way. Sunday Telegraph now. And Steve, if you love someone, set them free. Unless it's Scotland, in which case it's not meant to be.
The English may say good riddance to the Scots if indie ref calls persist, says Arlene Foster. The theory here is that we English might get so annoyed at the constant request for independence referendum, which I remember as soon as it was spoken about after the 2014 one, I remember thinking, oh, this is really quick. Alex Salmond said it's a once-in-a-generation thing. I know life expectancy might not be amazing north of the border, but come on, that was not enough. But actually, it's nearly 10 years. So maybe that does feel like a long enough period for questions to be re-asked. But her theory that we'll get so annoyed about the spectre and the threat of the indie ref means that it will ruin the union. I'm not quite sure how that converts into reality. So what if the English get annoyed? We won't get to get a referendum on kicking anyone off the island. So I don't know if our annoyance ever manifests as a real thing.
Sajeela, seems to be suggesting that actually we should be fighting more for the United Kingdom, putting the idea out there. Now, there are 2 different things that the government done. I believe that Boris Johnson had this kind of one love vibe.
Yeah, spread the love.
And now what's Sunak? He's got a sort of slightly different thing which says show, don't tell. Do you think he is showing, not
show? No, don't.
Well, basically, i.e., let's show that you know how we benefit each other, rather than just going on about it. Do you have a preference?
I just find it's really weird having this conversation when Brexit was a similar thing for me, but at least that one we got it kind of almost done. This it's like having a husband who keeps threatening to leave you, and you're upset. And I remember getting upset when first I was, oh my God, Scotland, you know. But then in the end you just think, I don't really care. Right, do what you want. I don't really care. Leave.
So you think that them going on about it. So this is sort of you're agreeing with her, really.
Yeah, I've kind of moved on.
You're emotionally, the doors are down.
Yeah, because it's
you'll never hurt me again, Scotland.
If you want to go, you know, if you love something, if you love a country, let it go.
Have you gone Gloria Gaynor on this? Are you doing the full I will survive?
But
I will.
But Steve, what are the options for the SNP? It's the Scottish National Party. Yeah. Are they really ever going to be able to truly drop this idea of independence and become the Scottish actually, we love being part of the UK party. What are they going to do?
Are the Remainers really? Are Leavers really going to get over the? Do you know what I mean? It's like you can have that same conversation. It's the same thing. It's toxic. For them, it's become the same toxic
the
conversation.
difference is that the Brexit Party, now that Brexit has been more or less done, not really a party, whereas the SNP...
running the show.
Yeah, because they've got that position of leadership means that actually you wouldn't want to give up the leadership. But they have to constantly request the IndyRef because that's their reason to be.
Yeah, but like any relationship that goes sour, they have emotionally left us a long time ago. They just need to physically...
Wow, you are really getting over that, that husband of yours. Let's take a look at the Mail on Sunday. And Sajila, computer science GCSE students are really known for their racism, right? Along with
all those racists,
all those
racist GCSEs, all those racist fears. So, basic example that actually is the word blacklist. Blacklist.
Oh my God! Don't say it loudly.
Quick, the police are coming.
I think it's 10
it's a computer
print
science GCSE over race and fears because apparently the word blacklist is highly contentious now.
Only you're allowed to say that.
Only I'm allowed to say it.
People of colour are allowed to say it.
And you know, soon they will ban. Do they have banned Blackboard? Blackboard. Have they banned?
Fortunately, technology seems to have done its work. The old Blackboard.
What about Blackguard?
We're just going to name black things now.
Yeah, black. What about the colour black? Should we just get rid of the colour blacks?
So
call it more midnight noir. But that's still black. But basically, so the schools are now. So they're taking this out of the exam board because the blacklist is actually a commonly used in cybersecurity term, which is used to describe a list of suspicious or malicious entities such as viruses, spyware, and other kinds of malware. And a white list is the opposite, containing everything that is allowed. So you can kind of see where they're going with this. Like, you know, conventionally speaking, black is all... I remember being cast as dark witch, and then there was white witch, and dark witch was evil.
Well, look, you could argue that case, but in something like this, I mean, Steve, come on. But black
I'm trying to give you balance.
No, I know, but I'm saying black is associated with nighttime, darkness, white is like heaven and all of the... You know, do you think there is any connection here to actual skin colour? Or...
No, the solution would be if we could go back and never have words that are associated with colour have anything to do with ethnicity, because they're wrong in terms of actual descriptions of colour. They're quite way off. I mean, I am pasty, but still that's not white. Whereas,
and I'm not brown.
Whereas if you then didn't have the colour words related to the issues of ethnicity, then you'd be fine to have all the computer things you want. But at the same time, I would say, how many people would be thoroughly upset if they open up the firewall on their Windows 11 and the two lists have changed their names?
Well, they have.
Well, no, but... OK, well, how about this then? Because it takes time to implement this stuff. They've changed it, I believe, to the deny list. We'll say that there is a... Because this is coming from the governmental agency that's dealing with our security. So say there's a big attack on the UK's infrastructure, and then they're like, OK, quickly, check the blacklist. And they're like, no, what do you do? Deny list? No, you know...
Anyone who knows what the blacklist is and the deny list is knows it's the same thing.
Yeah, but now they're changing, they're not calling it the deny list. I think someone else is calling it the block list. So then suddenly you're going from this universal term to Google's calling it the block list. They're calling it the deny... Look, I'm just saying...
Well, there are two arguments. So the exam board are saying it's a small but significant change and is part of our ongoing commitment to constantly learn, improve, and, you know, diversity, equality, all of that stuff. But then there is a counter-argument from Eric Kaufman, the professor of politics at Birkbeck College, saying that he thinks it's regressive and it seeks to police language in the name of preventing offence to a historically marginalised group. So, you know, I mean, we don't know. We don't know. We don't care about the words, do we?
I know. It's very stupid. On to the Sunday Telegraph. And Steve, has Line of Duty got a very exciting new case on its hands?
No. This is the National Body for LGBT Police Officers is being investigated after blocking critics. Here's the thing. It's in the Telegraph. They use the word wokery. Let's not have the side... Whenever that word comes up, there's a side cul-de-sac of argument about what do you mean by woke. No one...
What term do you want to use?
Well, I suppose from their point of view would be... What's an old term? Right-onness. PC gone mad. Right on.
Yeah, dude.
We used to say that about PC. What the hell's PC gone mad?
Yeah.
We used to say
but
that as well.
They have been blocking people who are critical of they would call it progressive ideology, I imagine.
Well, trans ideology.
Trans ideology is in there, yeah. So the point is, this is blocking on Twitter. So again, I'm torn between, do I really care what one account blocks another account for doing? Not massively, but at the same time, if you are a Twitter account that is representing a group, not an individual person, and you are there on social media to disseminate information, that's what you are. You're effectively just a broadcast in text form. Maybe you shouldn't be blocking anyone, because I don't know...
Well, also, they're literally being paid for by the public. For them to then block members of the public because they have a different agreement over ideology, I guess that seems wrong, and that's why they're talking about now investigating them.
I'm just trying to think, before Twitter, if we had a disagreement, we had a different opinion, how would we have dealt with that? We never just walked out all the time in conversations. Oh, I don't, I don't like what you're saying, I'm going to walk out. Because that's effectively what you're doing. And it's very childish.
Well, I would block them on MySpace. That's how I did it.
You even blocked Tom. Hardcore.
Yeah. That's all for part 3. Join us for the final section with dastardly dad jokes, the man flu myth, and whether men are going to exist at all. See you in 2.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday and Sunday for big guests, big opinions and a big presenter. 6'5", don't you know? See you then on GB News.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners. Steve, has the Mail on Sunday found your fan base?
Yeah, dad jokes. They've looked into dad jokes. This whole article has one good point and then pages of other jokes that they've copied and pasted.
Sounds like a great article.
They say that groaning after a pun isn't a sign of disapproval, which I'm so happy about. I did a gig before I came here tonight, and now, thinking back, those groans were groans of approval. Oh, I feel better about myself now. They're looking at the puns. Apparently, if it's a dad joke, are mainly puns, just to get all technical, paranamasic relationships between words and phrases. That's right, I studied comedy, not just turning up here with me 2 jokes. And if you groan at them, it's actually a sign of approval that you've worked out the joke and you've enjoyed it. For some reason, we now have that as one of our go-to responses. Oh, I get your joke.
I like silly jokes over really clever ones sometimes. I like my favourite joke, Dan Hoy. Last night in bed, I said to my wife, "Are you asleep?" She said no. She said yes. If she's lied about that, what else has she lied about? It's my favourite silly joke.
Favourite joke that you got wrong.
I got wrong. I was getting it right, normally.
But that one's not a pun, is it?
Yeah, it's not a pun.
No,
silly jokes.
No, but puns, there's something about puns.
Silly.
I mean, they're known as like the lowest form of wit, whatever. The idea that actually people secretly like them, they're sort of a guilty pleasure. Certainly the ones that are done right and in the right way.
Yeah. I mean, we've got favourite. We've got loads of them here. Let's keep it topical, like, you know, cost of living and all that. In college, I was so broke I couldn't afford the electricity bill. Those were the darkest days of my life.
It's a play on words. It's a play on words. Did you have many in your set, Steve?
I was thinking about this. Every so often I do bring back one that I did ages ago, but I need it. When I talk about you can buy boxer shorts with the tube map printed on them. And I say, like, how lost would you have to be before you check your pants? And I'm all for helping tourists. And I do a little scene where some guy was trying to get to East London, and I say, oh, yeah, look at that, that's Wapping. And that's a pun, because it's not based on a true story.
It's not true. Yeah, there we
so,
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, one of my puns is here, but weirdly they've attributed it to Jimmy Carr. So I'll be interested to know.
Is it Jimmy Carr?
They say what you like about the deaf. And then whatever. Now, I did that on TV a long time ago.
Right.
I'm not saying I need to look at when Jimmy did it on his tour, or I did it on... But look, these things are not impossible to come up with independently.
Did they... I'm trying to see where it is. Does it have written after it, which just tends to be what he does? I don't know if he's trying to land a plane or something.
It does. I love a good pun. I love... and I think audiences love it as well. I think the thing is you've got to double down on the pun. I'm all about the double down and the triple down, and I just keep on going, and then it becomes... sort of actual...
They mean those groans.
Yeah, they do know, but the groans turn into something. It's like you're beating them up with groans in a different way.
And then booing, and then walking out. They're all good.
Were you at my gig last night?
No, I think they feel like they're in on the joke. If you give them a pun, they groan. It feels like they're part of something.
Yeah. Well, I think they're engaged. That's the way I
do.
And also it mixes up a little bit to have different types of jokes, different styles, whatever. Anyway, sticking with the mail. And Sajila, forget COVID or climate change. This is the true scientific debate of our time.
So, scientists say the term man flu should be dropped after research finds that women suffer the most.
No,
because I always thought that women did suffer the most, and we just had that man flu as a, oh look, because you think you're suffering and you're not.
Trans man flu.
Yeah. So basically, they're saying that researchers have concluded, like something we already knew, that men's flu symptoms are actually milder on average. They just whinge more. Let's face it, that's what you do, guys, don't you?
No, not at all.
Well, no, okay, that's good. But they say that man flu should be dropped immediately as a term because...
They say. Who are they, Sajila?
The Medical University of Innsbruck in Austria, which might have been done by women, because when we've done these studies before, like they always...
Of course it's women who came up with this.
There's always a bias of who's doing the investigation.
Steve, this is total rubbish, right? Scientifically.
It's not, but women are better at recovering.
More men die.
Estrogen. Yeah,
more men die.
Men do die. Men do generally die more quickly than women.
We die of absolutely every category. This is the great thing about being a man, that we're more likely to have inherited diseases, more likely to catch something and die from it, more likely to die in accident, suicide or murder.
And heartbreak. Come on.
No, I think we're all right with that one.
Huh?
I love that you missed out the one bit where it goes, the findings undermine a previous study that suggests men really do suffer more. So,
yeah.
One all.
Yeah, exactly. Why did you fail to read... This is meant to be a balanced show, Sajid.
I'm sorry.
Look. The Sun and Sunday now. And Steve, it's been nice knowing you.
Yeah, well, you don't need to worry about man flu because men are dying out. So,
yay!
Bye. Fears that men could be extinct. There's a bit of a leap in the science here, but scientists have found that an endangered rat no longer has the male Y chromosome. They don't have enough of them left. So I guess the take-home message is don't try and mate with rats. I'm not quite sure if that's what they're saying. But it's possible that in humans it could happen the same way. But this is an endangered rat, so you don't have many of them, and there aren't many good copies of the Y chromosome left. There's an absolute ton of humans. So maybe we don't need to worry.
Yeah, but then a lot of humans are not having sex anymore. A lot of humans are
for yourself.
biological men.
Jeez, well, I always bring it back to you, aren't you?
Yeah, a lot of biological men are becoming transitioning. Those
numbers.
Those numbers, I don't know.
OK, now, Sajila, you're using your hands there a lot. The Daily Mail now. And what am I telling you?
Right, so that is a double tumbleweed.
Is that the double tumbleweed?
That's a double tumbleweed. So basically, body language really does say what the intentions are behind your common hand gestures. And I do use hand gestures a lot. It's a very cultural thing as well.
What am I saying now?
You're picking your boogers and you think I am the booger material up your nostril. But no, doing this and putting the finger up there is basically you're having a little pensive thing. But the double tumbleweed is this one. And it's basically you're thinking in real time, which I do quite a lot.
Yeah.
But there's one tumbleweed. You know what the one tumbleweed is? When you're basically
when you're holding
trying to wing
something
it.
else.
When you're winging it. When you're winging it and you don't.
I thought it was when you go around in a circle, swimming in a circle.
Oh, the Queen. Oh, God rest her soul. And the Deceiver. Oh my God, the Deceiver. That was this one. Like so. This is so you put hands there. The Deceiver. Basically, you're trying to hide something under your hand. You've got a secret. You've got a secret.
Let's
politician steeple.
Steve, What's your favourite of these?
Very honest. I love it. You've just described the House of Cards thing.
Yeah.
The leaning like that, and look what happened there. No, I mean, I'm not saying there's no science behind it. It's a very soft science. And I remember reading about this.
Hard science.
Like a hard science. If there's no equation, you can jog on. Unless you can group together things that tell you the message, it could just be, as you said, if it's a gesture with one hand, why is that? Or maybe they're holding a coffee. So don't read too much into one gesture. You need to look for clusters.
Well, the interesting thing in this article is really about, they're saying that it's because we've become better at using gestures because of COVID and using Zoom. And so it's made people previously who are a bit self-conscious sort of have to articulate themselves better. Or you're just Jewish and you do this a lot.
Because you're on the stage. They're saying that all of us are on the stage a lot more.
OK, that's all for the show. Thank you very much to my wonderful available guests, Sajila Kershi and Steve N. Allen. Headliners will be back tomorrow at 11. And we've got Mark Dolan, some people. Have a wonderful day of rest, unless you've got little kids, in which case I feel your pain.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness, brilliant. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
and online. We're proud to be the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories